Hevia. She's been working for over 20 years with children, teens, and adults who suffer from OCD. She received her first master's degree from the Counseling and Psychology Department at UW-Madison, did postgraduate training at the Boston Institute of Cognitive Behavioral Therapies, and received her second master's degree and her doctorate in psychology from Florida Institute of Technology in Melbourne, Florida. She did her fellowship in clinical psychology at Harvard Medical School and is a licensed psychologist in Massachusetts, Florida, and Arizona. I suspect that she keeps running just one step ahead of the law because she's in all these different states all the time. Dr. Hevia had multiple positions of postdoctoral fellows in several facilities. I'm not going to go through all of them. She's had served as an adjunct professor of psychology at both the University of Laverne in California and at Argosy, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Argosy University in Phoenix. Since 2005, Dr. Hevia has served as an assistant psychologist on the clinical staff of the OCD Institute at McLean Hospital, part of the Massachusetts General Hospital, considered by many to be one of the top inpatient OCD treatment centers in the world. Them and Rogers are the only places that we ever think about sending people inpatient in this country, unless there are certain extenuating circumstances. But they're really the best, those two facilities. They're in Wisconsin, they're in Boston, so it covers, and there's other differences between the programs, but they really are terrific, both of them. She's made dozens of presentations over the years, specifically on the topic that she's going to be talking about today. So please help me in welcoming Dr. Carol Hevia. Are we ready to go with this or not?
We might need. We'll just get started. We'll try and get up.
We had a little. We always have technical difficulties. It's just our way of challenging our own levels of anxiety. No, you're fine.
Good morning, everyone. I have to admit I'm a little bit happy about this, only because I did my first master's thesis on a typewriter. For those of, well, anyone under 30 doesn't know what a typewriter is, but with the footnotes at the bottom. So this is all very foreign to me. I'm used to the chalkboards. This is just a little bit stressful. But
let me just interrupt for a second. I just want to make sure that everybody has their handouts of the overheads. Does anybody not have them? They should be on every table, enough for each person here. Anybody not have one, raise your hand. No? And you're out of it at the table there because we have extra ones. We're set? Nobody doesn't have one? And everybody should also have a program which has this lovely lady's picture on it and all that other stuff that we talked about before. Okay? And then there was one last thing I wanted to mention. During the break, Jordan, could you stand up for a second? During the break, if you were on the panel and you didn't already sign the release form, could you find that gentleman over there and just sign very quickly a form? Okay? Thank you very much.
so don't worry about the PowerPoints because you have it at your table anyway.
No, because this isn't.
So, and that allows you to just kind of practice a mindfulness exercise, focusing on what I'm saying versus looking at which PowerPoint we're looking at. Okay, so eventually at some point in the talk, I will explain the camel. I know that the title is a little bit bizarre, and how many people had an image of or thought about what I was saying about the camel when you saw the title? Or thought, what? Right. So that's why I put that in there. Because for us, if you don't have that particular obsession, and it seems odd, whatever it is, and it seems like, why would they think that thought? Why would that bother them?
Yeah, it
But
worked
for the
earlier,
person who's
but not
having
connected to a
that
computer.
particular worry,
This is the first computer
sex
we've
with a
had.
camel, they're thinking about it, and they're thinking about
think
it
so.
all of the time. So now, a couple of things. I do want you to jump in with questions as we go. I think it makes for a livelier, more interesting talk. So, you know, just go like this and I will get to you. And I am going to be doing some exercises. If you have OCD and you don't want to do the exercise, that's totally fine. If you do want to, it's possible that you would get triggered, and I just want you to kind of sit tight and just keep trying to follow the talk. Okay. I'm going to say something to you, and I want you to try very, very hard to do it. Don't think about the pink elephant. What's happening for people? Anybody? Yeah.
Thinking about the pink elephant.
You are thinking about the pink elephant. What does your pink elephant look like?
Pink, brown, cute, cartoonish.
Yeah. Anybody else? Try again. You're not trying hard enough. Don't think about the pink elephant. Do not think about the pink elephant. Don't think about it. Don't think about the pink elephant. Now, some of you are smiling. Why are you smiling?
I'm thinking about a counter image, like a little pussycat. That's not.
Okay. Are you sneaking a little peek at the elephant?
I'm trying not to.
Anybody else? How many people are thinking about a pink elephant a little bit? And then you try to get rid of it. Yeah. So you see it, and then you have to try and not see it, right? Well, that's what happens with all of us, whether we have OCD or not. The moment we try to not think about something, we will think about it first before we don't. There were studies done with the white bear studies is what they were called, and they said to the college students, well, okay, don't think about the white bear. All of the students thought about the white bear first. Now, the other interesting part that goes along with that is when they finally did the second half of the study where they said, think about the white bear, think about the pink elephant. Then what happens? You actually think about the pink elephant more. Now, let's change it from the nice pink elephant to some of these worries. Think about one of your intrusive thoughts. And what do you do with it? You say to yourself, I don't want to think that thought. I'll think about anything but that thought. You're trying to push it away. You're trying to think about something else. You're trying to distract. And the more you focus on not thinking that scary thought, the more it's just like you put super glue on the thought and attached it to your head. Because I'm sure many people in the room can attest to, once you started to try and get rid of the thought, you couldn't. Some of you thought about a particular thought for hours, sometimes days. Sometimes it made it so it was difficult to eat or sleep. So you're putting all of this energy into managing the worry. It's just that the energy and the way you are working on suppressing the thought is actually making the thought worse. This is very, very important. So we have to, in treatment, take the energy and shift it to a different set of strategies that are much more counterintuitive, that are, in fact, a little bit more uncomfortable than most of you would like, but that's what we have to do. Now, I'm going to bother you because I'm going to move all over the place. So, one of the things that I say, I run the intrusive thoughts group 3 times a week at the OCDI at McLean Hospital. And one of the things that I say, every single group is I remind people that all of these thoughts that you have, running someone down with your car, stabbing someone you love, sex with a camel, those thoughts are normal. They aren't the problem. Why? You're like, are you kidding me, Carol? Why aren't they the problem? Everyone has thoughts that are grossly inappropriate at the worst possible time, whether they have OCD or not. I make a point of sharing what some of my favorite intrusive thoughts are, and I will be sharing them in here. Let's see. I'll give you a little teaser. Whenever I go into the subway station in Boston and I come down the stairs, there's this yellow line that is telling me to not go closer because it's not safe, right? So I see that line and I immediately have an image of shoving somebody onto the tracks, or that I fall onto the tracks and nobody wants to help me out and I'm like smushed like a pancake. Every time, right? That's one of my favorites. I also have a thing for ladies with walkers. Now, I like ladies with walkers. My mom's in that group, which is probably why I like to have an intrusive image about ladies with walkers. So, you know, okay, not only is my image not about helping them too much, it's actually more I maneuver behind them and then I get them right behind the knees so that they go flying. Every time. Also for people who are legally blind. Whenever I see the red-tipped white cane, I think of accidentally tripping them and then they go sprawling. Now, let's do a little count here. How many people have I shoved onto the train tracks? None. How many times have I been squished by the train? None. How many old ladies have I shoved over with the walkers, and how many blind people have I assaulted? The answer to all of those is none. Yet. Because I still got more time, right? But I haven't done it yet. Do I have the thought? Yes. Every time I see one of those cues, I see the yellow line and I'm near the subway, I see the walker, I see the cane, you know I'm going to have that thought. It's kind of dependable, okay? Probably the one that bothered me the most was the one that I had when my daughter was in elementary school, because I would drive up to pick her up, and I would have an image at approximately 3:20 Monday through Friday of hitting the accelerator instead of the brake, and hitting one of those small groups of little girls holding hands and hugging with the cute pink backpacks, My Little Pony, the Little Princesses, Hello Kitty, I think that's what it's called, Hello Kitty, and then ramming into them and having little children and limbs and backpacks going everywhere. Now I haven't hit any of them either, but you know, why did I think that thought? Now that one bothered me a little bit. Why did I have that thought? I had that thought because I was worried about being safe around all of those children. Look at elementary school, frankly, they're kind of short, right? The other thing is that they dart. They move really, really fast. A ball, a piece of paper, a shoe goes flying, and they don't look before they run into the street. They need that shoe or their mom's going to kill them, right? So they just run right out. That's probably why I had the thought. Now we could think about it and say, well, maybe Carol has latent hostility towards children because she's a parent and her daughter's holding her back or whatever. We could say that, and I suppose that's possible. I don't know. But anyway, I had the thought. Now, the thoughts are varied. I probably wouldn't even remember having the thought, except that I run these groups at the OCDI, And so when I have an intrusive thought that kind of grabs me and I go, oh, that was inappropriate, I usually go, oh, this is great, I can tell the group about it. For other people, I think people who don't have OCD, they have thoughts like this all day long. But they don't, oh my goodness, this is fabulous, I didn't even notice. Okay, how do I do do we have a clicker or no?
We have a clicker.
Just go like this, okay, go ahead. So, again, this is so important. If you walk away from anything, take anything away from the talk, the rest of it you can just forget. It's that the thoughts are normal. It is the reaction to the thought that's the problem. So what all are you doing that the other people don't do? If you have OCD, you put meaning onto the thought. Maybe you're a little psychodynamic, actually. You know, with that latent hostility. That's a joke, you guys. You think, oh no, I had the thought of running down the children. What if I want to hurt children? Okay? What if I want to kill myself, and that's why I had the image of falling onto the train tracks? What if I hate old people when I see someone and I have that image of pushing people over? Okay? You put meaning onto it. You give it credibility merely because you had the thought and because there is negative emotion attached to the thought. The other thing, to make matters worse, you or someone with OCD sees the thought as evidence of a character flaw. You have a thought about shoving somebody or tripping someone, and you feel it has to do with something permanent about your personality that can't be changed. You know, I might just be, I had a little too much coffee this morning, right? The person with OCD thinks that it's about them. Not only that it's a character flaw, but it evolves into that they are a bad person. Or maybe they even feel like they're evil. That's pretty awful. And if you think about it, it stirs up even more negative emotion. You know, first you have this surge of anxiety when you get triggered. But then you start to feel guilty and sometimes disgusted for a thought. You know, I mean, some of the people out there who are staying in some of our, in the prison system, I wish that some of them would feel a little bit of guilt for the thing that they did that got them into prison. And I don't know how they feel. But for someone who didn't do anything, the OCD sufferer feels pretty darn guilty. And then that morphs into shame. And then that can morph into, I need to punish myself. I shouldn't have fun. I don't deserve to exercise or to eat right because I'm just not worth it. The other thing, moral disgust. I'm going to talk about disgust a little bit later in more detail. Moral disgust, if you think about certain headlines in the news that are very shocking, or hate crimes, or some of the other things that are going on in other countries, you might have a moral disgust of feeling that this is wrong. Now, what happens with OCD is you can also feel that revulsion at yourself because you've had the thought. That's different than what I do, okay? I'm like, I go on with my day. Let's go to the next slide to see what we got. Oh, okay. So I'm just going to put some labels out here that you may or may not have heard, and if you like them, please use them in your practice or use them to talk about your OCD. but part of the thing that happens with all of these bad thoughts is it's hard to put vocabulary with it, and it's hard. People who have OCD feel it's hard to explain what's going on in your head. And so one of the things that we do at the Institute is we really give you a language so you can start to communicate what's going on. Because what often happens, particularly about these harm and sexual obsessions and scrupulosity and relationship obsessions, is people don't tell their behavior therapist that they're having them at all, which just breaks my heart. We've had people who have come in for multiple admissions to the OCDI, and on the third admission, they come to my intrusive thoughts group because they're worried that they're a child molester. And I say things like, oh, that must be a new symptom cluster for you. And sometimes they'll say to me, no, I had it all along, I just never told you all before. I didn't think it was OCD. Yikes. That's like years of suffering. We don't want that. So when I think about harm or aggressive obsessions, I break them into two categories. I talk about harm by intent. That's where your obsession has to do with that you see yourself intentionally harming someone else, that you purposefully instigate harm. So, stabbing someone, strangling someone. I like the piano wire one, but I don't get that very often. All right. We gotta liven you guys up. I should get like a laugh sign over here. Shoving someone under the train tracks, of course, that's mine, I know. Okay. Running a pedestrian down with your car on purpose. Shouting out racial slurs when you're not racist. Shouting out insults. Grabbing someone in public in a sexual manner. Fear of intentionally harming yourself when you don't want to do that. What are some other favorites? Just jump here. Let me hear some. Any favorites? Yeah.
Contaminating.
Oh yes, is on purpose or by accident? Fabulous. So that's a good point. Contamination, where you're going to hurt someone, you're going to spread Ebola or whatever disease you would like to spread. You can do it intentionally. Okay. We have had a lot of those with HIV. The person doesn't have HIV. They're terrified that they do, and then they worry that they're going to intentionally give it to others. I know that's a little off, but we'll get to magical thinking. Yeah, you also can do it by accidentally harming someone, by not being clean enough. Any others by intent? There's got to be more. Yeah.
You might impulsively take all this medication.
Oh yeah, when you don't want to, but you worry and so a trigger is you got to take the medication. You look at the bottle and you go, okay, somebody's got to watch me do this to make sure that I take the right amount. And then you take it in front of a family member and then you go, did I take the right amount? Or you count it again and again and again, and then you stare at it. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
We had someone who had difficulty cooking because the feeling was I'm going to somehow put bleach or Clorox or something into the food while I'm cooking by accident and poison my family.
Right. We have had a lot of exposures at the unit where we have people try to harm the other patients at the unit because we do all of the cooking at the unit ourselves, and so often the patients are helping with the food preparation. So when I first got there, I was asking a lot of questions about the computers and whatnot, and everyone was teasing me that I was asking for reassurance. So my person had the harm by intent, and so we were taking tacks and putting the tacks in the kitchen cupboards and on the counters, and then someone might accidentally get cut or hurt, right? So then they were getting more willing to do the exposure, so they opened up the chili spices and they dropped it in on the top, and they said, is that okay? And I had two thoughts going on. Okay, clinically this is great, they're being more willing, this is awesome. And then I was like, am I gonna get in trouble, right? So, but I'd already been teased unmercifully for asking for reassurance, so I said, oh, that's great. So then they got enthusiastic and they took the chili and they went like this, and the tack went further down. And then we finished the exposure, and their suds, they had habituated to the exposure. So their suds were like 60, and mine was at 85. So I went upstairs, and I sat in my office, and I wrote up my note, and I thought, do I tell? Do I not tell? Am I being, a scaredy cat? And then I forgot about it, and I went on with my day. And then a few days later, I got this little, like this, from one of the bosses who pulled me in and said, well, we made chili for lunch today. And don't worry, I didn't get it. I'm still employed. So it's good. It's all good. But anyway, okay, let's go to the next one. I think it's harm by neglect. Harm by neglect is more subtle. A lot of times people think it isn't an aggressive obsession, but it is. And a lot of the concepts that we use for harm by intent work beautifully for harm by neglect. That's when you worry, what's your name? So was what Sue was saying, that you will accidentally hurt someone when you would never do that in a million years. So it can be, okay, because you're not careful enough. You feel responsible for keeping people safe. That can be driving, it can be food preparation, it can be that there's a spot of water on the floor and you're worried someone will trip and break their neck. Now what's interesting about all of these obsessions is that, yeah, I might leave water on the floor and somebody might trip, but if that were to happen kind of on my watch, I would think, they'd sprain an ankle. But if you have OCD, you guys really like the catastrophes. You could all be Hollywood writers because the images and the worries that you have, they are possible. They're extreme. Okay, so one of the common ones is feeling there's going to be a catastrophe, a fire. Did I unplug all of the appliances? How many people turn off their appliances when they leave the house? Be honest. How many people turn them off? Okay, the rest of you leave them on. You could have a fire. Okay, how many of you unplug the appliances? My husband unplugs the appliances. He's like, he says I'm careless. Can you believe that? So, okay. Burglary, checking the doors and the windows. Okay. Floods. Is the faucet turned off? When you finish using the water, do you turn it off and then do you go like this? And you push it and you push it. Yeah.
Some of these things begin to veer into the area of not so unusual.
Yes.
For example,
Yeah.
Someone is afraid that when they applied for their life insurance, they misstated their social security number, or
Yes.
they left it off.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my God! If something happens to me, which granted is very improbable, but if something happens to me, my children will not get my life insurance.
Yes.
Is that an obsession, or is that just kind of a general worry?
Well, it depends.
And
So.
how do you treat them differently?
Well, we do a little litmus test, basically. Okay, number one, if the person is being treated for OCD, I'm going to assume it's OCD until it's proven otherwise. And so I might say, let's do a test. Let's just wait to check the social security number for a couple of hours and see what happens, okay? Or let's do it a couple of days or a couple of weeks. And in the waiting, if there is an enormous spike of anxiety, maybe it's leaning a little bit more towards OCD. It is possible that they could screw up the numbers and their kids wouldn't get the life insurance, and that would be a bummer. But if they were gone, they don't have to worry about it, their kids have to worry about it, so
They want to
I
be a
think,
good parent.
I'm sorry, what?
They want to be a good parent.
Yes, they do want to be a good parent. I also think it's how many times do they check. So if they call once and say, can I go over the numbers, and frankly with those kind of policies, they're going to send something in the mail and then they can check. It's how many times do they check. One check in general is within the norm. Checking many times is not. Now does anybody, I want people to jump in and say, well, what if, because that's what somebody with OCD is going to do. Anybody? Yeah.
I don't know if you're getting to this, but one of the common questions we get is, if you take away my fear of doing this thing, doesn't it make me more likely to do the thing? So if I'm not afraid of killing myself, won't I be more likely to kill myself?
Well, and in that case, I am going to talk about it more later, but it's always good to repeat things. I don't know if that's an OCD thing or not. I'm teasing. Okay, so people who are worriers, not just OCD, they often, when you talk to them, what you see is that the anxiety serves this really odd function in that they believe if I worry, then somehow that decreases the likelihood that I will make a mistake. Or if I worry, then I'm really not a child molester because I'm worrying about it and I'm upset about it. Well, then how do you get rid of the worry? You know, you come in to get help with the worry. You can't give it up because look at what the consequences are. You're going to make mistakes that are pretty catastrophic. You're going to hurt children. You're going to run people down with your car. So we have to look at that. And then, now I'm getting ahead of myself, but don't worry, we'll go over it again. Eventually there has to be an exposure that follows the trail of the worry all the way to the end. So when the person is actually habituating to the original worry, okay, what I often see, okay, I'll give you an example. I had someone who was worried about running people down with cars. I know, I used that example already, but it's a popular one. So we were, they had driven around and there is this pond across the field from McLean. And so we were by the pond, not looking in the bushes, wondering if the person who they fatally injured was somewhere in the bushes. And it was going great. Their anxiety was dropping. They were thinking that the person was dead or near death, and they were less anxious about it. And then, lo and behold, the very end of the exposure, we have 10 minutes left and I have to go run a group. And their anxiety skyrocketed, and I was like, what happened here? I had no idea. Why did it go wrong? Well, what happened? I said, what are you thinking? I don't know what happened. You know, we screwed up somehow. And the person said that when they started to feel less anxious, the thought became, what does this mean about me if I am willing to leave someone who's dying in the bushes in order to get my OCD better? Now, remember the basics here, people. Nobody's in the bushes. Nobody's dying. Nobody's even just hanging out there for fun. Nobody's there. But they're worried that if they had hit someone, if it actually happened, they wouldn't be anxious, they wouldn't do the right thing. Now, I think we'd make a lot more money if we were able to change values with ERP, but we can't do that. We cannot change your basic values and moral structure by ERP. The worry is that we can, but we can't. What we're doing is we're taking out this debilitating anxiety that's getting in the way of your making choices that you would make without it. you know, I know this is a little bit of reassurance, but if you actually hit someone with your car, you would stop. You would know you hit someone and you would stop. I've actually had people where they had very bad health anxiety. They were worried about choking and they couldn't eat and were like moving towards a feeding tube. It's not good. In the one case, the person got breast cancer, a real aggressive form, so they had to have a double mastectomy pretty quickly. There wasn't a problem with the breast cancer. The person was like reassuring her kids, her adult kids. She's like, this is okay, we can do this. It's going to be all right. This is what we have to do, no anxiety. And the worry about the choking went to the wayside. The cancer was real, it was certain. Certainty she could deal with. Now, when the cancer started to go into remission and the tests were looking good, what came back? The worry about the swallowing returned. Okay? All right, let's see what we got on the next one. Oh, okay, so we've already been talking about this a little bit. Fear of being a pedophile, for those of you who don't know what that word is, that's a child molester, that you hurt a child in a sexual way. Worry about being gay when you're straight. Being gay and worried that you're straight. Being one or the other and saying, oh, what if I'm bisexual? And now as the transgender issues get more publicity in the media, people are worrying that they're transgender and they don't know it. Now, for homosexual obsessions, which is what we usually call it, but it's really all of those things, I just can't say that the big long LG, I have to think about it, LGT, okay. So, it's not about homophobia. It's not. Frankly, with all of OCD, in a way, the content is irrelevant. It's that you are reacting to a thought in a way that keeps this terrible pattern going. But when you have one of the sexual obsessions, everybody gets uptight. Because we aren't, remember the basics here, we aren't supposed to have a pile of thoughts about sex, right? And we aren't supposed to talk about it. And nobody knows what to do about sex education, because our kids aren't supposed to think about sex either. So, and those are all the people without OCD. So imagine how difficult it gets when you have all of this worry about it. So it's not about homophobia, just like it's not about racism. It's about that you're saying what if, and that you want 100% certainty about your sexuality. And I got news for you. From a treater's perspective, I would say to people, nothing is 100% for sure. Nothing. Nothing except one thing. I've only been able to think of one thing. And that, now put your seatbelts on because I could trigger somebody. Everyone in this room is going to die. Everybody. Nobody gets out of it. And I know in Arizona they have that cryogenic slab. They had Ted Williams went there, but it didn't go that well for him either because he got decapitated while they were doing whatever. Ted Williams, the baseball player,
Yeah.
He's going to have troubles with his swing without his head when they bring him back. But for the most part, everyone in the room is going to die. Nothing else is certain. Somebody always says taxes, but who knows what's going to happen, right? I don't know anything else for sure. Not 100% for sure. Most of the things are possible. Even the science fiction-y things with emotional contamination, they're possible. That's how those writers come up with all those ideas. They're just like your thoughts. So you all could be making more money if you started writing Hollywood scripts. So everybody know what emotional contamination is, because I don't have a slide on that. I'll just review it if I need to. Okay, so emotional contamination is one that's really fun. It is when an object or a person or a geographical location somehow takes on a dangerous characteristic, and the person worries that they will somehow catch it, the negative characteristic, just by being near it. And then with emotional contamination, it generalizes like crazy. So say you have someone in one of your classes or a coworker who really is kind of a bully. I mean, they're actually a bully, right? And they just aren't very nice. And you have to see them every day, and you have OCD. You start to worry that if you have to use their computer or a pen that they used, you need to go wash because you might catch that bully essence and then start to act like a bully. Then you go home and you start to shower, because there's a contamination piece to this. That's usually how it spreads. You got to go home, take off all your clothes, wash them in hot water, and shower to get off that person's essence that somehow has glommed onto you. Now, I guess you could say, perhaps you would start to act like they did just because you're around them a lot, okay? But I don't know that you would catch the negative characteristic. But I could see it. If it really was as magical as the person makes it, it really is moving more into a science fiction mode, which in the past meant people were sometimes diagnosed as being psychotic. But it's not psychotic, because at some point when the person is talking to me, they will say, I know this is crazy, but this is what I'm thinking, and this is what I'm doing. Now, I'm reminding you, when you are very, very anxious, you lose all that. Insight goes out the window. There's none of it. It's all going to be gone. And then all you can do is do what you're supposed to do and resist the rituals as best you can. Because then your belief in this worry gets worse. But at some point you're saying, this is crazy that I think this. This is nuts. I don't want to be doing these things. Someone who is psychotic is going to believe it 100% of the time and then act on it. I have a bank account in this town and I'm going to walk 5 miles to go get money out of my account. And then, we find them walking every day towards the bank. That's not going to happen if you have OCD. So that's emotional contamination. Let's see. Oh, let's go back to sexual. Let's do that. That's more fun. Okay. Fear that you will commit sexual acts, of bestiality with animals. Usually it's not a camel, right? Sometimes there's giraffes, sometimes there's elephants, sometimes there's, usually it's dogs and cats, okay? Dogs and cats are great. It's hard to fit the larger animals into my office for the exposures. Dogs and cats work well, though. We can have them come in, and the person has to hang out with them, and then I go for an extended break to the restroom while they're in the room alone with the animal, and then we don't know what happened, and I can't tell them because I was in the bathroom, right? And then eventually, they can't be 100% sure that nothing happened, but they get a better sense of, okay, I'm pretty sure I didn't do anything. I'm going to let my anxiety go down, but I may never know. Remember what OCD is? Here's what we know thus far, and that is that it has to do with overactivity in 3 parts of the brain. So instead of going, yeah, I locked the door, it goes, but what if? But what if you really didn't lock the door? And then what would be the thing that happens? And then what if someone takes the jewels? What if someone takes the credit cards? What if da-da-da-da-da? Uh-oh, okay? I turn the coffee pot off, I'm done. And even if I worry about it in the car, I don't go back because I'll get in trouble for being late to work. and then I forget about it the rest of the day. And life goes on. Is it possible I left it on? Yes. Yeah.
I had a client who was very worried about unplugging the coffee maker and unplugging her dryer.
Yeah.
So what she would do to get to work on time was she took pictures.
Yes.
And she would check. And periodically throughout the day, she would take out her phone and she could see the picture. But then, of course, it went into, but what if this was yesterday's picture?
Yes. That's the thing. I will be very honest. I'm very ambivalent about the phones. There are all sorts of wonderful things that we can do with exposures and with with YouTube and all of the movies and how easy it is to pull it up and the images and all of that stuff. Great, great, great. But the screenshots, they're killing me.
Yeah, yeah.
Because one screenshot goes into 5, goes into hundreds, whether it is with appliances, which I've heard. I have a mom who has a newborn who worked with me before the baby, but everybody knows, pregnancy does crazy things to your hormones, right? So now, we started working on it ahead of time. So what are the 2 big ones? Contamination. Why? Because everybody tells the mom she's going to screw it up and the baby's going to get sick because of her. She didn't sterilize something. And number 2, for harm. So she was doing screenshots like 3 to 5 of the corners of the crib and then studying them until she got a good feeling so she could fall asleep. Now, she was already sleep deprived, but it got worse. It didn't need to be that bad. So, yeah, if they're doing the screenshots, I try to get them to, now usually I have shouting when I suggest this as an intervention. It's just wild, the reaction. I ask them to put their phone away for certain amounts of time during the day. And I tell you, the teenagers are the loudest.
Oh, yeah.
They start saying that anything but the phone. We are not giving up the phone. But the phone, think about the reassurance. Well, think about it at the unit. Okay, in the old days, I know, you can tell I'm older. In the old days, there was the pay phone on the unit, right? And there was the snail mail. People could mail letters. And so they couldn't talk to their family during the group. Now, in between all of the groups, I look out the window and there's 3 of my people. Yeah. Doing all this stuff. Do you think they aren't asking for reassurance? Yes, they're asking for reassurance. Is Mom still alive? Mom, do you think this is okay? Mom, do you know what Carol made me do today? She's killing me. I gotta get out of here. Come and get me at 5, right? So I try to, what I do that helps is sometimes, I do it randomly so we have the element of surprise, is when people come in for the groups, on some days, I have everybody put their phones on the table in the middle. Well, nobody wants to do that because there's all sorts of other obsessions about the phone. I mean, think about it. It's a goldmine. We have contamination. We have symmetry and exactness. We have harm by neglect. We have somebody's going to steal my phone. We have I'm going to miss out on an important message in which somebody in the family died. It's always death, right? So people don't want to put their phone in the middle. So when it's my groups, people have started to leave their phones in their safes. Right. That's an hour when they aren't reassuring themselves. And think about it. This is a dirty little secret. If your phone is next, this is true for all of you people, be honest with yourselves. If your phone is there, you won't miss the call. And then in the break, you can check it. Think about how uncomfortable you get if you leave your phone at home. Don't people go back home to get, without OCD, go back home to get your phone? Oh my God, right? Now, I'm not so big on the phone. I love to get rid of it at any chance I can. But if I left my appointment book at home, same thing, just an older version. So, but those of you who don't have OCD, think about not checking your phone. You hear that little ping, and you try to resist checking the message. It's not so easy. Just saying. just saying. So, all right. Grabbing people in public? Who doesn't think about grabbing somebody's ass at the mall? There are hot people at the mall, right? There are. They're all dressed up. Everybody's, strutting around. They got those bags and they got those heels that are killing their feet.
Even the president.
Even the president, yes. Right. Don't you, I mean, no show of hands, people, Fifth Amendment, but don't you just think sometimes with some of them that you're like, and then you're like, okay, I'm too old, I'm married, I can't have that thought. But, that you have the image of grabbing someone. Now, my hunch is it's a minority who's been arrested for that in this particular group. That's a joke, people. Right? But most of us have had that thought. Yeah. Or like staring at someone who's really, really beautiful, or staring at private parts where you shouldn't be staring, right? Then you're like, okay, I'm not going to look at their ass. I'm not going to look at their ass. And then, you know what happens? You're going to start peeking, taking a quick dart and then getting your eyes back. Okay. I like the last one because I like to just call it the Immaculate Conception, in that the person with OCD worries that they will impregnate someone or become pregnant without ever having had sex. Sometimes ever, they aren't sexually active yet. Sometimes, yeah. So we had this going on, and then it's not what you think. It's not what you think. It's worse than what you think. So they can't sit in the chairs, or I had some people who had tremendous quadriceps because instead of sitting on the chair, when they sat down on the chair, they were like this. Has anybody ever done this at the gym and the personal trainer tells you to keep squatting? This is hard to do. But they were sitting in groups all day with their behind just a little bit off the chair. It sounds funny, but it's really hard to do. You should go home and try it. So anyway, we had someone who worried he was going to impregnate someone. So he used a restroom, and he usually did it at times like in the middle of the night where less people were using the restroom. But he used the restroom, and then a female went and used the restroom right after him. And so he started to email us asking if he could approach the other patient to ask her to take pregnancy tests, because if he was the father of the child, he wanted to be responsible and start to set up supporting the child.
Right.
Obviously, now, that's OCD, okay? We had to tell him that wasn't a good idea, okay? That he had to resist that urge. One is because it would have interfered with somebody else's treatment. But talk about a big ritual. And then I think that goes into the next slide nicely. I think I have scrupulosity. Yeah, so that person had sexual thoughts and also scrupulosity. I impregnate someone, I need to start working on the kids' college fund, right? Lots of scrupulosity. Blasphemy. So that's the standard going into church or the synagogue and saying bad things in a real loud voice, right? Sinning. There are certain religious groups where because of the way things are presented, the sinning is more triggering. So the people with OCD who are Catholics sometimes worry quite a bit about sinning or offending God. Of course, OCD doesn't discriminate a lot, so you can have a religion that really doesn't, we have lots of people where their religion doesn't believe in hell, okay? And they're obsessing about going to hell. And so then they said, does this count? Because I really shouldn't be believing this. And yes, it's just OCD. OCD, grabs hold of whatever. So, sin.
you'd think these would be good sins. You'd think they'd be really meaty ones, right? But they're not. They're littering, not holding the door open for someone, not cleaning up well enough after, they ate in the dining room. I do that all the time, right? It's not that big of a deal. Sometimes I remember to be polite, sometimes I don't. But for someone with scrupulosity, it's very difficult. Sexual thoughts about God, Jesus, and Mary. That one is very upsetting for people. It's kind of like a twofer. We got a little bit of aggression and a little bit of sex, and then pretty soon an image, about the person and the statue, and it goes down the toilet from there. So, okay, let's go to the next one. Let's see what we got.
Next slide.
Um,
Okay, no, you can.
okay,
Back,
well, let's go to morality.
Sorry.
So morality, that's a term coined by Leslie Shapiro. Yeah, did you have a question?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, it was just an itch. Okay, well, now you owe me and you have to come up with a good question. So, morality has to do with a preoccupation with right and wrong. And frankly, I think most people with OCD get a little bit caught up in this, in that they think a lot about right choices and wrong choices. Whereas I think a lot about choices, that there are many choices and there's good, bad, and ugly with every single choice. But if you listen to somebody who's more triggered, they'll say, well, I have to make the right choice. I can't make the wrong choice. And then the person is really paralyzed. Often your people with OCD have difficulties deciding. Why do they have trouble with decisions? Because the moment that they commit to one decision, they start to doubt it. How many people have family members, you go to the ice cream parlor and one of them goes, they can't decide, so they go, well, I think I'd like 2 scoops of chocolate and 1 of vanilla. And then they go, no, is it too late? I gotta change my thing. I think I want butterscotch. And they go, okay, we'll do butterscotch. So then the kid dumps it back in and starts scooping away. Oh, I don't know, maybe I should have a hot fudge sundae, right? Well, that's kind of like what the OCD brain does, is the moment you make a decision, I'm going to take this college class, then their brain says, oh, well, maybe I should do this other one. And then they go back and forth and back and forth. And that would be fine if they looked at the pros and cons once, and then they made a decision. But allowing them, and for those of you who are parents who sat with the college kid, aren't you supposed to be like listening to them and helping them to think about options and all of that? So you let them talk about it for hours and days. But that isn't helpful for them. They need to say, okay, it's rocks for jocks, and that's it, and that's going to be my science requirement, and then they got to stick with it. And that's going to help them to make decisions better. Good, bad, and ugly. Okay, so they don't need the class and they have to take another science. I still think it was a good choice. Okay, more about this. So I did have someone where their employer really wanted them to come to the OCDI because every time they were late for lunch, which wasn't often, they wanted to, they put in like the paperwork to dock the minutes from their vacation time. So they were making more work for everybody else so that they could be less anxious. The employer thought they were a good worker other than that, so they didn't want to fire them, but they wanted to kill them, Returning 25 cents in the vending machine to the rightful owner. Now, somebody could argue with me that that's the right thing to do. And I guess it is if it's not 25 cents, if it's $1 million. But the 25 cents is not that big of a deal. So that's another example. And it looks like the person is just wicked nice, right? It's not about being a nice person. It's actually about lowering their anxiety. The interesting thing about moralosity and scrupulosity is that most of the rules that they create, it's for themselves. This is very important. Everybody else gets a pass. It's aimed at themselves. When you have someone who is more blaming other people and saying that the other people have to change, then we're usually moving into another set of problems, more of a rigidity, like an OCPD type of thing. It's mostly at themselves. They've got one set of rules for themselves and another set of rules for everyone else. And everyone else gets this mega dose of compassion, and the person who has the OCD does not. Yes?
I get frustrated driving if I don't make a traffic light.
Yeah.
I say something bad will happen to me or my wife.
What, say it again? What is,
If I don't make like a traffic light,
yeah.
I think that something bad will happen. And I know it's not real, but
Then what do you do? What do you do with that?
I'm worried.
That something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, and then my wife knows she's been touched. No, it's fine. She's a doctor, so she understands what I'm going through.
Right,
But
right.
I can only think it's only OCD people that have these feelings, like you said.
Yeah.
And it's just frustrating.
So for you, you want to say to your wife, okay, honey, you're really great, but I want you to just shrug your shoulders when I don't make the light. When I say I'm worried something bad's going to happen, then eventually she's going to go, who knows? Maybe it will.
My therapist used to say, if it's not life-threatening, you're not worried about it. You're not
Awesome.
worried about making a line or say if someone cut you off. If it's
Yeah.
not life-threatening,
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
yeah.
But that can be just rage, like you OCD. But
Yeah. You and your,
Yeah. You mentioned this earlier, and this might not be the right moment, but I wanted to ask you to clarify something you
Yeah.
said. You talked about, with OCD, the importance of getting to the ultimate concern, which appears to be, am I a good person or am I a bad person?
Right.
Or at least a lot of the time. Will you tell us how you address this with ERP, cognitive therapy, etc.?
yes. Yes, I will. I'm not sure when it's going to come up, but it is going to come up. I will say this, though. You can't just go after that one right away.
Okay.
Because you want to, even though we know that hierarchies now, okay, so let me just sidewind here a little bit, and then I'm going to come back to her question. In the old days, when we first started doing ERP, we talked about taking a hierarchy with a symptom cluster and going from easier all the way to the hardest activity. And then we would work up the ladder of the exposures. That's how I was trained years and years and years ago in the early 80s, right? Well, now the research reflects that the jumping around on the hierarchy a little bit is actually a little bit better for treatment. That there's better generalization. So it looks like we're more torturous than we were 20 years ago. We aren't as nice. But actually the jumping around, it kind of takes your OCD by surprise. So nevertheless, go back to the hierarchy with what Sue is saying, and that is she's got something that's kind of well, whatever. It's that somebody feels they aren't a good person. I'm not going to go after that first because it's way too hard. I'm going to start with small things where I can really teach them the process of ERP first. So if I have something that is behavioral, where the ritual is behavioral, I get all excited about that because it's easier to teach with that. And it's a little bit easier to teach because the person isn't quite as anxious. And so if I can get the hang of it, so like say the 25 cents in the vending machine is the one that we're going to target. Let's do litter. Okay, so they're gonna be resisting picking up litter on garbage day, so it's a little bit hard. But I can walk with them, and we can block their picking up the litter, and they can see what it is. Now, ultimately, it really might be about scrupulosity, but that's a lot more threatening for the person than just doing the litter, if that makes sense. So, okay, so with perfectionism, which I haven't talked much about, but I can, and everybody knows what perfectionism is. You know, I gotta get it perfect, I can't make any mistakes. And a lot of times with scrupulosity, not all the time, but with those two, in some ways, there's some obstacles that are really present with those that aren't present with harm obsessions. Harm obsessions stink, the person doesn't want to have them, and they're pretty motivated to give them up. But if you have scrupulosity, you want to have a strong religious faith, you want to be a good person. If you are a perfectionist, frankly, you've probably gotten a lot of goodies from being a perfectionist at some time, particularly in school. You worked really hard on that project, you got an A+, and the teacher wrote, excellent job, in red, right? Who didn't live for that, right? Notice they never did that with our dissertations. Anyway, but there's things that you like about it, the OCD gets kind of mixed up with what people value. So it's way more threatening for the person to really go after scrupulosity or perfectionism right off the bat, outright. Because it feels like we are attacking who they are, that maybe we're going to try to change their religious beliefs, or we're going to make them into a sloth-like creature. So we have to let them have some experience with something that is easier. I had a scrupulosity case where it was going nowhere fast because she was refusing to do many of the easier exposures. And I was thinking, okay, this is a pre-treatment case. I couldn't get her on board with starting anywhere. And then she came to my door in the middle of one day and knocked on the door, and she said, okay, I have an idea. And she came up with an exposure of going to this secondhand record/DVD store, and she was just going to walk through the aisles. She was worried about the devil and becoming a Satan worshiper. She was just going to walk through the aisles because they had some alternative magazines there. They had scary DVDs. They had The Exorcist. They had Rosemary's Baby, all sorts of good things like that. And so she did that for a while, and that got okay. And so then she came back and she said, okay, I pulled out some of the DVDs and I touched them, and then I put them back. Okay, great. Now, meanwhile, I just sat there and said, this is really good. I'm so glad. I never thought of those. So, and then she touched them more, and then she started to read the magazines, and then she purchased some of the DVDs, and she did very well. Now, why did that work? Because I gave her enough space, in part, I gave her enough space that she could decide, okay, this is my choice. I had to get her, it was more of a collaborative thing. So that's why, that's a long answer to your question, that's why we can't go after it right away. we have to kind of soften them up first. And in
And then
part, what? I'm sorry, what?
And then what? They go on believing that they're bad people. Most people have a little germ of that on the inside of them.
Yes.
We don't always feel comfortable with ourselves.
Yes. Well, and I'm trying to figure out where those slides are. Okay, so yes, that is absolutely true. And what I say to the people with OCD in my groups is I go, okay, this is about perspective shifting. And you have OCD and we don't have a good cure in place, so this is something that's going to wax and wane over the lifespan. So I really have no intention of trying to convince you that you are a good person or that you're even nice. In fact, you know, a lot of your behaviors are a little bit suspect anyway because they're done to lower your anxiety. That's really what's underlying it. But I want them to be able to learn to just come in the middle, not to go to the other side, but to come in the middle and say, well, I don't know. I might be a good person, I might not be a good person, maybe I'm somewhere in the middle. I mean, I think that's how most of us are. Some days we are more magnanimous than other days. You know, some days I'm going like this to other drivers, and some days I'm stepping on the gas, right? Depends how late I am. But I think one of the things I do actually from a cognitive perspective is a lot of times the worry is quite vague. And so, particularly with the I'm a bad person, well, that's really pretty vague. What kind of a bad person are you? There are many flavors of bad people out there. So what is it specifically that says to you, you are a bad person? Well, one day I let somebody in to the line in the cars, and one day but another day I cut them off. Okay, and let's just sit with it. Well, what does that mean? Well, I don't know what it means. It means one day I cut them off, and one day I let somebody in. One day I rolled up my windows and I locked the doors instead of giving the homeless person money. And another time I rolled the window down and gave somebody a 20. What does that mean about me as a person? I don't know. One day I had money in my wallet, one day I didn't, or maybe I wanted to spend the money on myself. I don't know. I don't know for sure. So I do a lot of we don't know. Whether it's sexuality, whether it's good or bad, that we have to tolerate. I always like steal from Clint Eastwood. There's good, there's bad, there's ugly. And there's a little bit of all of it. If I try to pressure them to move one way or the other, then I've lost the war and we're in a power struggle. I just did this like a couple of weeks ago with someone where I really thought, I'm like, I'm hot doo-doo today, I can feel it. So I went after something using cognitive therapy to push the person to make a little more movement. But that was an error on my part. The person got more entrenched with their belief. So I'm pushing and I'm pushing and I'm pushing, and then like 20 minutes in, I'm like, this is not going well. And what happened? This week they canceled. So not good. I can't argue with somebody. And if I'm doing that, usually I'd be reassuring them if they have OCD. You are a good person. You're a really good person. I know you're a good person. You know, it would be better if I was saying, I don't know. I'm having fun with you right now, but who knows? You could really suck next week that you come in. I don't know. Okay, I will come back to that. I have some exercises that I'm going to do. Okay, let's see what we got. Oh, okay. So relationship OCD, I think, is very tightly wound with making decisions and scrupulosity and perfectionism. And who knows? I think we needed more topics for conference talks at the IOCDF conference, which, by the way, is in San Francisco. You should go to it. It'll be good. And if not, there's like a lot of sightseeing if the conference sticks. But anyway, this is one that we are talking about more. And I actually like this symptom cluster. Let me tell you why. Relationship OCD the person, now, before all of you diagnose yourself, let me do a sidewinder here. You may, it's possible that you will get medical students' disease or psychology students' disease sitting in this conference. Okay, because some of the things that I talk about, you are going to sit there, and if you're really being honest with yourself, you're going to go, oh shit, I have that. I do that. I worry like that. I didn't think I had OCD. This is not good, right? Well, that's what medical students do. You know, they start learning about all the diseases and the body parts, and suddenly they've got this tropical disease that you have to go to Brazil to catch, and they've never even been to South America, and they've got it, right? Psychology students also do the same thing for postdocs. I can remind you guys probably remember this, where, you know, you started with the diagnostic manual. I'll tell you, I had every personality disorder. I had all of them. And I'm calling my mom, Mom, will you still love me? Right? And another one of my colleagues got worried and told the professor she thought she was psychotic, and he goes, it's going to be okay. Sent her on her way. So you can get that. Relationship obsessions are when the person starts to worry about an aspect of the relationship in an obsessive way. Think about commitment. I love what you guys say, you younger people. You're so cute. You go, I think it's time to kick it up to the next level. I love that. We didn't say that then. We were like, do you want to go steady? Do you want to wear my leather jacket? We didn't do the kicking it up to the next level. I like that. That rocks. So anyway, should I kick it up to the next level with my boyfriend? Should I get engaged to this guy or girl? How do I know that I love them? What if I don't love them? Worse, what if he or she doesn't love me? I need to know for sure. This is important because I'm going to buy a dress here, and it's going to be white and long, so I don't have a lot of places to wear it, right? Now, some of you are looking at me thinking nobody thinks that, but they do, right? Okay. Should I get married? How do I know I'm going to love this person forever? We don't, right? We don't know. We just do this crazy leap of faith, and sometimes it's a crazier leap than others, right? We've all been there. But so so everybody worries about this stuff. But somebody with OCD, there's an OCD piece to it that makes behaviors excessive. Texting. I know you all do that anyway. Texting. Do you love me? Do you love me? Are you there? Are you there? Are you sure you love me? I saw you look at that girl. What were you thinking when you looked at that girl? That means you don't love me. Blah, 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 blah. And pretty soon, the girl or the guy is dumped. They're kicked to the curb because they were annoying. The bad thing about this is that, is it a relationship issue? Well, it's not the bad thing, but the differential is it a relationship issue that you're going to talk about and problem solve and move out of? Or is it OCD? Now, it could, you're 3 slides ahead of me. This is so great. Yes, it often is both. And, but we got to get the anxiety, the OCD anxiety out of the equation so that the person can actually work on the issues. So, yes, it looks like a couples issue, and again, they can end up in talk therapy and pay their copay every week, same time every week, to ritualize with the therapist and become more symptomatic. So it's tough. All right, let's see. Okay. Oh, I was talking about this already. No, that's fine. Go back. Let's see if there's anything interesting. What if I don't truly love my partner? Don't you like that? Truly. I'll tell you. I've been married for, I consider it a very long time, over 20 years. And I don't know, I guess I truly love my husband. Maybe I truly love him more when the clothes get into the hamper. Are there times where I get really mad at him or frustrated and vice versa? Absolutely. Does that mean that I truly love him? I don't know. I have no idea. How does he feel about me? Sometimes I don't want to know those automatic thoughts. You know, when I come home with another shoe bag from Nordstrom's, I don't know that he truly loves me as much as he did in the morning before the cash left the checking account, right? Okay, I'm teasing. What if I'm not being a good partner or parent? Think about that. How many people are parents in here? Do you guys all remember, like, didn't you have like moments of terror where you realize, you go, oh my goodness, I'm screwing up the child, right? I'm not being a good enough parent, I'm a bad parent. And meanwhile, your neighbor, you can hear her grinding the baby food by hand that they just harvested from the garden, right? It's rough. And here the dynamic people really came up with something that's helpful for the OCD people, and that I've had a lot of mothers with OCD who are obsessing about being, and this is going to be fun to talk about being a good enough mother, okay? Or do they truly enjoy spending this moment, watching Barney with them, and they've seen it 20 times through from start to finish? Did they truly enjoy that? And they had thoughts of wanting to read a romance novel, or contemplate their navel, or sleep, God forbid, and they're like, oh, this means I don't love my child. I'm being a crappy parent because I'm not in the moment with my child, right? It's about being good enough. And usually, so yes, I know I'm reassuring a little bit, but I will say it once. It's about being a good enough parent. You can't possibly be a perfect parent 24 hours a day. Because as you all know, being a parent, you thought it was going to end at 18, right? Well, no, it goes to like 55. So, yeah, you got to be a good enough parent all that time. Right, so you're screwed. You're just totally screwed. You aren't going to be a perfect parent. Even like a B parent is probably not good. You should aspire to be an average parent, a C parent. Probably, no one in this room, the psychologists with their doctorates or, people with OCD, none of you liked getting C's. I know it, right? Okay, so anyway, I'm not a good enough mother. Quality time with your kids. I mean, I stayed home with my child for 6 years or 5 years or something like that. And I tell you, there were moments where I felt it was just the best thing ever. Oh my God! She waved her arm. She got her hand to her mouth. This is awesome. Oh, she did a poopy. I can't believe it. Ecstasy, right? Simultaneously, there were many times in the day where it was just downright boring. What was when I was watching TV with her, it was Bob the Builder. Yes, we can. Anybody remember those days? Bob the Builder. There was some octopus. I forgot the name of it. What was it?
Oswald?
Oswald, yes! And Weenie Girl. Oh, my husband loved that show, so I'd be like, okay, Weenie Girl and the Oswald are on. You sit with her and watch it. So Dora the Explorer, very good stuff, high quality TV. Did I enjoy all of it? Usually I was running around trying to clean while she would, okay, this is going to go for, I have 21 minutes to get something done, and I'm running around like a mad woman. So anyway, okay, am I attracted enough to my partner? People. all of you, don't tell me any details, conjure up your long-term partner. Are you always attracted to them? Sometimes you are, and sometimes not so much. And with the really long-term marriages, I love this. I love this idea, with long-term marriages, it's really, you're crazy about them, and then they aren't so great, and then they get on your nerves, and then you fall in love all over again, and then they're really hot, and then they get kind of yucky, and, it's this endless, falling in and out of love, right? So, do I truly love them? Yeah, I guess some of the time. Is it enough? Oh, hell if I know. But today, I'm deciding to be with them. So, let's see what we got on the next slide. Isn't this fun? Like, you can, work on yourself here. So, I said this. Okay, so let me see what's next, and then... Okay, let's go back to the other one just for a second. So, with this is fun. And this is also fun, and this goes back to what you were saying about, there's some real issues, and then there's some OCD in it. This is great. Think about your relationship. Yeah, I got this long-term thing going on. But I'm assuming that, as far as I know, we're going to be together for a long time, okay? I'm assuming, until one of us bites the big one, and I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know what disease is going to take us down. But I'm assuming that we're going to be together, because it's 20-some years. That's a long time, Okay, so... But do I know 100% for sure that I won't meet somebody else who I fall in love with? Or that he's professor, that, he won't fall in love with some student and, decide, the old gray mare, she ain't what she used to be, and he doesn't want to be. I don't think that's going to happen, but it could. It's possible. Now you guys are thinking, oh, you're not being respectful of your relationship. But what I'm saying is, it's possible that I could be wrong about that. It's probably not probable, but I don't know. And what's really cool about this is that once you realize, and this is true for everybody, it's not just OCD, that nobody else knew they were going to get therapized. That if you think about it, the moment you really realize that all you have is today, with these people who you love like crazy, it really allows you to enjoy the day, or the week, or the vacation. It also allows you to not sweat the small stuff quite as much, except for the underwear and the hamper. That's got to happen, okay? But that's all cool. All of that stuff that really is like healthy ways to think about the relationship also can apply to the OCD. So when the person's saying, I don't know if he loves me, well, I don't either. He doesn't either, frankly. He thinks he does, but what does he know, right? All of that playfulness in thinking about it allows them to briefly shift in perspective. But remember, they're like, okay, another old thing. Remember in the old days in your basement where there was like a light bulb with this open fixture and you'd pull on the string to turn it on, right? Most young people even remember what that's like. This is cool. So, oh yeah, okay. So it was a movie. She didn't actually experience it. But okay, so insight or understanding about the OCD is brief and fleeting in the earlier stages of treatment. The light bulb goes on. So I've had people who are working on homosexual obsessions, and they come up to my door at the end of ERP, and they're like, I got it. This is great. I could be gay. Who cares? This is wonderful. They go down to lunch. 20 minutes later, they're back up at my office, knocking on the door, and they're in tears. And they go, oh, no, this isn't okay. But in the moment, they had this brief understanding, and it's almost like a balance. I got it. I'm never going to know. That's where my head has to be. I'm not going to know. I got to sit with it. I got to live with that, okay? But the thing about it is that the light goes on for longer and longer periods of time as they move through their work. going back to the thing about feeling evil, because that's a lot of what I'll talk about this afternoon, is that they will have brief moments of maybe being more compassionate with themselves, and then it all goes to hell in a handbasket again. And then they're an evil person again. But you want to watch and feel encouraged as a clinician at looking for those moments and then saying, okay, this is great. Because we got it once, we can get it again. It's like surfing, you know, when you first, I don't surf, but when you first are surfing and you get your balance, this is awesome, then you wipe out. But then you do it again and again and again, and you're able to keep your balance longer.
3 minutes.
3 minutes? Oh, this is good, because I think that, oh, okay. All right, magical thinking. Now I'm going to move into, don't worry, we'll get it all covered. Magical thinking. All of these thoughts have magical thinking. That's where magical thinking, all that is that it's, the person knows it's crazy. They know that it doesn't make any sense, but they still believe it. Laws of physics, logic, don't apply. So I've had a lot of people with harm where they worry they are going to shove somebody on the sidewalk. I don't know what it is about shoving people on the sidewalk, but that bothers them. And so, like, say the pedestrians are here, so here's how they're managing it. They're walking, like, way over here. They're 5 and 10 feet away, and they come back to the unit and they say, I shoved that woman. She went down the stairs. And they were so far away, there's no way they could have shoved that person. That's magical thinking, right? Or touching something that a bully at work, a coworker who's a turd, that if you touch the pen that they used, that you are suddenly going to become turd-like. That doesn't make any sense, right? That's magical thinking. Emotional contamination, I've had people worry that if they fly in the airplane over Hershey, Pennsylvania, because Hershey, Pennsylvania was the hot spot or ground zero for their obsession, that then somehow they were going to become contaminated with whatever essence it was that they were worried about. That's magical thinking. That's why you guys should all be writers, I swear. It doesn't make any sense. But that's what the person believes. All of these thoughts, scrupulosity, relationship obsessions, harm, sexual obsessions, all the pregnancy ones, that's all magical. You know, unless they're in on some secret that I want to know today, right? It's not possible to get pregnant from sitting on a chair that someone else sat in. All right, let's break for lunch. This is great.